Alô, alô, testando. Ah, agora sim. 111, 123, hello. How is my sound over the song? Okay, it seems good. So, let's begin. As I say in the description, this is literally just me coping. I have just watched Dune episode part 2 and I am frustrated. It's not what I expected. I'm sorry if anyone feels differently, but it's not my style. So I really want to reread Dune because I think it's so good. It's honestly so good, and honestly, it's amazing how he managed to not, like, it's not just me, right? But the Dune Part 2 has like nothing from Dune, right? Like, there's not a single thing. At least it felt for me like over like those 3 hours had like 5 minutes of 5 minutes. Literally just, I mean, well, maybe that's too much. Maybe that's too little. Uh, but I think was 5 minutes of honest to God book material, right? The rest was pure fantasy created by Denis Villeneuve. And I know, I didn't like that. I really did not enjoy that. It felt empty. Um, so now that I got that incredibly long opening out of the way, let's watch it. Let's read and watch the book. Actually, I don't think I'm gonna watch the movie. I'm gonna change the title. Uh, I'm kind of sick, so sometimes I'm gonna mute myself to blow my nose. So, let's begin. From Manuel Muad'Dib by Princess Irulan. A beginning is the time for taking the most delicate care that the balances are correct. This, every sister of the Bene Gesserit knows. To begin your study of the life of Muad'Dib, then take care that you first place him in his time. Born in the 57th year of the Padishah Emperor, Shaddam IV, and take the most special care that you locate Muad'Dib in his place, the planet Arrakis. Do not be deceived by the fact that he was born on Caladan and lived his first 15 years there. Arrakis, the planet known as Dune is forever his place. So, something that I will do is compare to what I recall of the movies, of the new movies, um, because I I don't know. I feel like the changes made were offensive. Were offensive. I think that's a word that I would use because I'm not a book purist. I don't think books should be translated 100% to the to the screen. That's not correct. That wouldn't even make sense. I mean, Dune is so deep in thought and has so much subtext. I mean, doing that 100% in screen is completely bonkers. But at the same time, I do think the story is really solid. Sure, it's kind of slow, but I think it works. Um, sure, it's not for everyone, but I don't think it should be for everyone. In fact, the more actually, let's get to my conclusion later. I'm probably gonna end the book with the conclusion. Sorry, but the point is, I'm gonna compare it to the movies because I don't think the changes were strange. I mean, the the fact that we don't have Princess Luna narrating kind of removes a bit of the. Sure, she should narrate everything she said here. She said in the books. That was me sneezing. Sorry. But I do think that some of her narrations are pretty good. Also, I think the order the books reveal things are they are superior. I mean, this first narration really settles for us that Muad'Dib is this important figure that sure he was born in Caladan. We're gonna Caladan, Caladan. I don't know. We're gonna read about him in Caladan, but that's not the point. The point is that he's fully a Rakim. Is that the right word? Rakim is a city, but he is a person of Arrakis. Also, it gives us a sense of the fact that someone is writing about him. Like, who is Princess Irulan? The first time I read this, I thought. I mean, sure, at some point we discover who she is, but the first time reading this, I was thinking that she's like his daughter or someone that hasn't a direct connection to him. Uh, sure, we find out that's not true, but still. I'm sorry, I'm talking too much, but maybe that's the point. Uh, maybe that's the idea of being a transformative content. I don't know. But let's continue. In the weeks before their departure to Arrakis, when all the final scurrying about had reached a nearly unbearable frenzy, an old crone came to visit the mother of the boy, Paul. Sorry, mouthful reading. It was a warm night at Castle Caladan, and the ancient pile of stone that had served the Atreides family as home for 26 generations bore that cold sweat feeling it acquired before it changed the weather. The old woman was led in by the side door the vault Sorry, the old woman was led in by the side door down the vaulted passage by Paul's room, and she was allowed a moment to peer in at him where he lay in his bed. By the half light of a dispenser lamp, dimmed and hanging near the door, the awakened boy could see a bulky female shape at his door, standing one step ahead of his mother. The old woman was a witch shadow, hair like matted spiderwebs, hooded, round darkness of features, eyes like glittering jewels. Is he not small for his age, Jessica? The old woman asked. Her voice wheezed and twanged like an untuned belly set. Paul's mother answered in her soft contralto. The Atreides are known to start late getting their growth, Your Reverence. So I've heard, so I've heard, wheezed the old woman. Yet, he's already 15. Yes, Your Reverence. He's awake and listening to us, said the old woman. Sly little rascal, she chuckled. But royalty has need of slyness, and if he's really the Kwisatz Haderach, well, within the shadows of his bed, Paul held his eyes open to mere slits, two bird-bright ovals. The eyes of the old woman seemed to expand and glow as they stared into his. Sleep well, little rascal, said the old woman. Tomorrow you need all your faculties to meet my Gom Jabbar. And she was gone, pushing his mother out, the door closing the door with a solid thump. Paul lay awake, wondering, what's a Gom Jabbar? In all the upset during this time of change, the old woman was the strangest thing he had seen. Your Reverence, and the way she called his mother Jessica like a common serving wench instead of what she was, a Bene Gesserit lady, a duke's concubine and mother of the ducal heir. Hair. Is a Gom Jabbar something of Arrakis I must know before we go there? He wondered. He mouthed her strange words. Gom Jabbar, Kwisatz Haderach. There had been so many things to learn. Arrakis would be a place so different from Caladan that Paul's mind whirled with a new knowledge. Arrakis, Dune, desert planet. Let's take a break. Sorry, I'm gonna make a lot of those. Well, so, before we get to his thoughts, because those I don't think could be the following paragraphs won't be directly translatable to the big screen, so I'm gonna talk about them. I'm not gonna talk about them. Well, I'll probably do, but just saying as a book has a different objective. But this scene, I'm pretty sure this scene isn't in the movie, right? I'm not crazy, I think. Is it? uh, the but I'm sure that it isn't. Even if it is, I'm sure it isn't 100% there. I mean, first of all, they changed his age, which doesn't seem that important yet, but I will get into why I think it's important later on in the book when it becomes important. But first of all, I do think that the scene is a great introduction for everyone. I mean, Jessica is shown to be powerful by Paul's thoughts of her being imposing. I mean, she thinks, at least, that she's powerful. We see that he is someone that respects his mother, that he sees himself as above some. Like, the way he says that the Reverend Mother is treating Jessica as a common serving wench. Like, that shows that he thinks that they are above some people, which is good for him. Good characterization for him. Also, the Reverend Mother is shown as someone who clearly does not care about their status. She thinks she's above them, which is also great characterization for her. And the way that they reveal those things, the Gom Jabbar, the Kwisatz Haderach, it's just like planting little seeds for us to think about. And the last sentence I read, Arrakis, Dune, desert planet. It's written in italics with hyphens separating or breaks separating the Arrakis break, Dune break, desert planet. We'll see he repeats this a few times, and I don't know why, but I've always loved this. It's kind of it kind of shows his mind processing everything and going back to that specific important thing. Like everything goes back to the fact that Arrakis, Dune, desert planet, and also shows that his. Oh, actually, there's another thing. He mentions that he was trained in the Bene Gesserit, and it shows that he's really good at reading people. But it also shows that Reverend Mother is extra. She like sure he's trained, but she can see past that. She knows he's awake. I like that. So going back to the book, Arrakis, Dune, desert planet. Thufir Hawat, his father's master of assassins, had explained it. Their mortal enemies, the Harkonnens, had been on Arrakis 80 years, holding the planet in quasi-fief under a Chom Company contract to mine the geriatric spice, melange. Now, the Harkonnens were leaving to be replaced by the House of Atreides in fief complete and apparent victory for the Duke Leto. And yet, Howard said, this appearance contained the deadliest peril. The deadliest peril, for the Duke Leto was popular among the great houses of the Landsred. A popular man arouses the jealousy of the powerful, Howard had said. Arrakis, Dune, desert planet. Paul fell asleep to the dream of an Arrakeen cavern. Silent people all around him, moving the dim light of glow globes. It was solemn. It was solemn there, and like a cathedral as he listened to a faint sound, the drip, drip, drip of water. Even while he remained in the dream, Paul knew he would remember it upon awakening. He always remembered the dreams that were predictions. The dream faded. Paul awoke to feel himself in the warmth of his bed, thinking, thinking. This world of Castle Caladan, without play or companions his own age, perhaps did not deserve sadness and farewell. Dr. Yue, his teacher, had hinted that the Fofreluches class system was not rigidly guarded in Arrakis. Fofreluches is the caste system that the Harkonnen forced upon the Arrakeen people. The planet sheltered people who lived at the desert edge without Cade or Bashar to command them. Willow, the sand people called Fremen, marked down on no census of the Imperial Regate. Arrakis, Dune, desert planet. Paul sensed his own tensions, decided to practice one of the mind-body lessons his mother had taught him. 3 quick breaths triggered the responses. I think that's it. He fell into the floating awareness, focusing the consciousness, aortal dilation, avoiding the unfocused mechanism of consciousness, to be conscious by choice. Blood enriched and swift flooding, the overload regions. One does not obtain food safety freedom by instinct alone. Animal consciousness does not extend beyond the given moment, nor into the idea that its victims may become extinct. The animal destroys and does not produce. Animal pleasures remain close to sensation levels and avoid the perceptual. The human requires a background grid through which to see his universe. Focused consciousness by choice, this forms your grid. Bodily integrity follows nerve blood flow according to the deepest awareness of cell needs. All things, cells, beings, are impermanent. Strive for flow permanence within. Over and over, within Paul's floating awareness, the lessons rolled. When dawn touched Paul's windows, when dawn touched Paul's windowsill with yellow light, he sensed it through closed eyelids, opened them, hearing the renewed bustle and hurrying the castle, seeing the familiar patterned beams of his bedroom ceiling. The hall door opened and his mother peered in, hair like shaded bronze, held with black ribbon at the crown, her oval face emotionless and Rian eyes staring solemnly. You're awake, she said. Did you sleep well? Yes. He studied the tallness of her, saw the hint of tension in her shoulders as she chose clothing for him from the closet racks. Another might have missed the tension, but she had trained him the Bene Gesserit way, in the minutiae of conversation. She turned, holding a semi-formal jacket for him. It carried the red Atreides hawk crest above the breast pocket. Hurry and dress, she said. Reverend Mother is waiting. I dreamed of her once. Who is she? Was my teacher. Sorry, she was my teacher at the Bene Gesserit school. Now, she's Emperor's Truthsayer. And Paul, she hesitated. You must tell her about your dreams. I will. Is she the reason we got Arrakis? We did not get Arrakis. Jessica fleeked dust from a pair of trousers, hung them with the jacket on the dressing stand beside his bed. Don't keep Reverend Mother waiting. Paul sat up, hugged his knees. What's a Gom Jabbar? Again, the training she had given him exposed her almost invisible hesitation, a nervous betrayal as he felt as fear. Jessica crossed the window, flung wide the draperies, stared across the river orchards towards Mount Siubi. You'll learn about the Gom Jabbar soon enough, she said. He heard the fear in her voice and wondered at it. Jessica spoke without turning. Reverend Mother is waiting in my morning room. Please hurry. So, here we see another aspect. This pauses will be less constant as time moves on, and they'll get shorter. But here we see that Jessica knows how to hide her emotions, which is important because she's a Bene Gesserit. And well, in the movie, well, if you've watched it, you know she's a mess. I mean, I think Rebecca Ferguson did an amazing job with what she was given, and I do think she's the best. It's the best Jessica in terms of acting we've had, but she does show too much emotion, which is, you know, the complete opposite of what was supposed to be. But whatever. Also, a little pet peeve. I mean, the Atreides are red, and I don't think there's much color in the movie. I mean, I've never got the impression that it's all bleak and gray on Dune, right? But yeah, whatever. So back to the book. Sorry, let's just be right back. Okay, back to the book. The Reverend Mother, Gaius Helen Mohiam, sat in a tapestried chair watching mother and son approach. Windows on each side of her overlooked the curving southern bend of the river and the green farlands of the Atreides family holding. But the Reverend Mother ignored the view. She was feeling her age this morning, more than a little petulant. She blamed it on space travel in association with the abominable Spacing Guild and its secretive ways. But there was a mission that required personal attention from the Bene Gesserit with the sight. Even the Padishah Emperor's truthsayers couldn't evade their responsibility when the duty call came. Damn the Jessica, the Reverend Mother thought. If only she'd born as a daughter, as a girl, as she was ordered to do. Sorry, I'm gonna reread that. If only she'd born as a girl, as she was ordered to do so. Jessica stopped 3 paces from the chair, dropped a small curtsy, a gentle flick of the left hand along the line of her skirt. Paul gave the short bow of his dancing. Paul gave the short bow his dancing master had taught, the one used, quotes, when in doubt of one other's station, end quotes. The nuance of Paul's greetings were not lost on the Reverend Mother. She said, "He's a cautious one, Jessica." Jessica's hand went to Paul's shoulder, tightened there. For a hot heartbeat, fear pulsed through her palm. Then she had herself under control. Thus he had been taught, Your Reverence. Thus he had been taught, Your Reverence. What does she fear? Paul wondered. The old woman steadied Paul in one gestalten flicker, face oval like Jessica's, but strong bones. Hair, the Duke's black, but with brown line of the maternal grandfather who cannot be named. Wink, wink. And that thin, disdainful nose, the shape of directly staring green eyes, like the old Duke, the paternal grandfather who is dead. Now, there was a man who appreciated the power of bravura. Bravura? I don't know. Even in death, the Reverend Mother thought. Teaching is one thing, she said. The basic ingredient is another. We shall see. The old eyes darted a hard glance at Jessica. Leave us. I enjoy you to practice the meditation of peace. Jessica took her hand from Paul's shoulder. Your Reverence, Jessica, you know it must be done. Paul looked up at his mother, puzzled. Jessica straightened. Yes, of course. Paul looked back at the Reverend Mother. Politeness and his mother's obvious awe of this old woman argued caution. Yet, he felt an angry apprehension at the fear his sense radiated from his mother. Paul, Jessica took a deep breath, this test you're about to receive, it's important to me. Test? He looked up at her. Remember that you're a Duke's son, Jessica said. She whirled and strode from the room in a dry swishing of skirt. The door closed solidly behind her. Paul faced the old woman, holding anger in check. Does one dismiss the Lady Jessica as though she were a serving wench? A smile flicked the corners of the wrinkled old mouth. The Lady Jessica was my serving wench, lad. For 14 years at school, she nodded, and a good one too. Now you, come here. The command whipped out at him. Sorry, that's a voice. Let me retry to do that. Now, you, come here. The command whipped out at him. Paul found himself obeying before he could even think about it. Using the voice on me, he thought. He stopped her gesture, standing beside her knees. See this, she asked, from the folds of her gown. She lifted a green metal cube about 15 centimeters on the side. She turned it, and Paul saw the one side was open, black, and utterly frightening. No light penetrated that open blackness. Put your hand in the box, she said. Fear shot through Paul. He started to back away, but the old woman said, Is this how you obey your mother? He looked up into bird-bright eyes. Slowly, feeling the compulsions and unable to inhibit them, Paul put his hand in the box. He felt first a sense of cold as the blackness closed around his hand, then sleek metal against his fingers, and a prickling as though his hand were a slip. A predatory look filled the old woman's features. She lifted her right hand away from the box and poised the hand close to the side of Paul's neck. He saw a glint of metal there and started to turn toward it. Stop, she snapped again, using the voice again. He swung his attention back to her face. I hold your neck, the Gom Jabbar. The Gom Jabbar, the high-handed enemy. It's a needle with a drop of poison in its tip. Ah, don't pull away or you'll feel that poison. Paul tried to swallow in a dry throat. He could not take his attention from the seamed old face, the glistening eyes, the pale gums around silvery metal teeth that flashed as she spoke. A duke's son must know about poison, she said. It's the way of our times, Musky to be poison in your drink, almost to be poison in your food. The quick ones and the slow ones and the ones in between. Here's a new one for you, the Gom Jabbar. It kills only animals. Pride overcame Paul's fear. You dare suggest a duke's son is an animal? He demanded. Let us say I suggest you may be human, she said. Steady, I warn you not to try jerking away. I am old, but my hand can drive this needle. But my hand can drive this needle into your neck before you escape me. Who are you? He whispered. Who are you? He whispered. How did you trick my mother into leaving me alone with you? Are you from the Harkonnens? The Harkonnens? Bless us, no. Now be silent. A dry finger touched his neck, and he stilled the involuntary urge to leap away. Good, she said. You passed the first test. Now, here's the way of the rest of it. If you withdraw your hand from the box, you die. This is the only rule. You put your hand in the box, and you leave. Withdraw it, and die. Paul took a deep breath to still his trembling. If I call out, there will be servants on you in seconds and you'll die. Servants will not pass your mother who stands guard outside the door. Depend on it. Your mother survived this test. Now it's your turn. Be honored. We seldom administer this to man-children. Curiosity reduced Paul's fears to a manageable level. He heard... Oh, sorry. Need to... He heard to a manageable level. He heard truth in the old woman's voice, no denying it. If his mother stood guard out there, if this were truly a test, and whatever it was, he knew himself caught in it, trapped by the hand in his neck, the Gom Jabbar. He recalled his response from the litany against fear his mother had taught him out of the Bene Gesserit rite. I must not fear. Fear is the mind killer. Fear is the little death that brings total obliteration. I will face my fear. I will permit it to pass over me and through me. And when it has gone past, I will turn the inner eye to see its path. Where the fear has gone, there will be nothing. Only I will remain. He felt calmness return. Get on with it, old woman. Old woman, she snapped. You've courage, and that can't be denied. Well, we shall see, Sira. I have no idea what Sira is. She bent close, lowered the voice almost to a whisper. You'll feel pain in this hand within the box. Pain. But withdraw the hand, and I'll touch your neck with my Gom Jabbar. The death so swift, it's like the fall of the headman's axe. Withdraw your hand, and the Gom Jabbar takes you. Understand? What's in the box? Pain. He felt increased tingling in his hand, pressed his lips tightly together. How could this be a test, he wondered. The tingling became an itch. The old woman said, You've heard of animals chewing off a leg to escape a trap? There's an animal kind of trick. A human will remain the trap, endure the pain, feigning death that he might kill the trapper and remove a threat to his kind. I don't think that's true, but whatever. The itch became the faintest burning. Why are you doing this? He demanded. To determine if you're human. Be silent. Paul clenched his left hand into a fist as the burning sensation increased in his other hand. It mounted slowly, heat upon heat upon heat upon heat. He felt the fingernails of his free hand biting the palm. He tried to flex the fingers of the bunny hand, but couldn't move them. It burns, he whispered. Silence! Pain throbbed up his arm. Sweat stood out on his forehead. Every fiber cried out to withdraw the hand from that burning pit. But the Gom Jabbar Without turning his head, he tried to move his eye to see that terrible needle poised beside his neck. He sensed that he was breathing in gasps, tried to slow his breaths, but couldn't. Pain! His world emptied of everything except that hand immersed in agony, the ancient face inches away staring at him. His lips were so dry he had difficulty separating them. The burning, the burning! He thought. He could feel skin curling black. Oh, he could. He thought he could feel the skin curling black on that agonized hand, the flesh crisping and drooping away until only charred bone remained. It stopped, as though a switch had been turned off. The pain stopped. Paul felt his right arm trembling, the sweat bathing his body. Enough, the old woman muttered. Kul Wahad. No idea. Kul Wahad. No woman child ever withstood that much. I must have wanted you to fail. She leaned back, withdrawing the gom bar from the side of his neck. Take your hand from the box, young human, and look at it. He fought down an aching shiver, stared at the lightless void where his hand seemed to remain on its own volition. Memory of pain inhibited every movement. Reason told him he would withdraw a blackened stump from that box. Do it, she snapped. He jerked his hand from the box, stared at it, astonished. Not a mark, no sign of agony on the flesh. He held up the hand, turned it, flexed the fingers. Pain by nerve induction, she said. Can't go around maiming potential humans. There's those who'd give a pretty for the secret of this box, though. She slipped it into the folds of her gown. Sorry, I can't read apparently. But the pain, he said. Pain, she sniffed. A human can override any nerve in the body. Paul felt his left hand aching, uncurled the clenched fingers, looked at 4 bloody marks where the fingernails had bitten his palm. He dropped his hand to his side. Look at the old woman. You did that to my mother once? Ever sift sand through a screen, she asked. The tangential slash of her question shocked his mind to higher awareness. Sand through a screen? He nodded. We Bene Gesserit sift people to find the humans. He lifted his right hand, willing the memory of the pain. And that's all there is to it? Pain? I observed you in pain, lad. Pain is merely the excess of the test. Your mothers told you about our ways of observing. I see the signs of our teaching in you. Our test in crisis and observation. He heard the confirmation in her voice, said, It's truth. She stared at him. He senses truth. Couldn't he be the one? Could he truly be the one? She extinguished the excitement, reminding herself. Hope clouds observation. You know when people believe when they say what they say, she said. I know it. The harmonics of ability confirmed by repeated tests were in his voice. She heard them, said, Perhaps you are the Kwisatz Haderach. Sit down, little brother, he at my feet. I prefer to stand. Your mother sat at my feet once. I'm not my mother. You hate us a little, eh? She looked toward the door, called out, Jessica! The door flew open, and Jessica stood there, staring hard-eyed into the room. Hardness melted from her as she saw Paul. She managed a faint smile. Jessica, have you ever stopped hating me? The old woman asked. I both love you and hate you, Jessica said. The hate, that's from pangs, I must never forget. The love, that's... just the basic fact, the old woman said. But her voice was gentle. You may come in now, but remain silent. Close that door and mind it that no one interrupts us. Jessica stepped into the room, closed the door, and stood with her back to it. My son lives, she thought. My son lives and is human. I knew he was, but he lives. Now I can go on living. I do think she would kill herself. I don't think she would survive that. The door felt hard and real against her back. Everything in the room was immediate and pressing against her senses. My son lives. Paul looked at his mother. She told the truth. He wanted to get away alone and think this experience through, but knew he could not leave until he was dismissed. But knew he could not leave until he was dismissed. The old woman had gained power over him. They spoke truth. His mother had undergone his test. There must be terrible purpose in it. The pain and fear had been terrible. He understood terrible purposes. They drove against all odds. They were their own necessity. Paul felt that he had been infected with terrible purpose. He did not know yet that the terrible purpose what the terrible purpose was. Someday, lad, the old woman said, you too may have to stand outside a door like that. It takes a measure of doing. Ha! Yeah, well. Paul looked down at the hand that had known pain, then up to Reverend Mother. The sound of her voice had contained a difference than from any other voice in his experience. The words were outlined in brilliance. There was an edge to them. He felt that any question he might ask her would bring an answer that could lift him out of his flesh road into something greater. I feel like I can't speak because of my nose. Okay. Into something greater. Why do you test for humans? He asked. To set you free. Free? Once men turned their thinking over to machines in the hope that this would set them free. But that only permitted other men with machines to enslave them. Wink wink. Pay attention, guys. Though thou shalt not make a machine in the likeness of man's mind, Paul quoted. Wink wink. Right out of the Butlerian Jihad in the Orange Catholic Bible, she said. But what the OC Bible should have said is, thou shalt not make a machine to counterfeit a human mind. Have you studied the Manchat in your service? I've studied with Tofir Hawa. The Great Revolt took away a crutch, she said. It forced human minds to develop. Schools were started to train human talents. Bene Gesserit schools? She nodded. We have two chief survivors of those ancient schools, the Bene Gesserit and the Spacing Guild. The guild, so I think, emphasizes almost pure mathematics. Bene Gesserit, they perform other function. Politics, he said. Cool, Wahad, the old woman said. She sent a hard glance at Jessica. I've not told him, Your Reverence, Jessica said. The Reverend Mother returned her attention to Paul. You did that on remarkably few clues, she said. Politics, indeed. I think Kolwahag are like, holy shit. Politics, indeed. The original Bene Gesserit school was erected by those who saw the need of a thread of continuity in human affairs. They saw there could be no such continuity without separating human stock from animal stock for breeding purposes. The old woman's words abruptly lost their special sharpness for Paul. He felt an offense against what his mother called his instinct for frankness. It wasn't that Reverend Mother lied to him. She obviously believed what she said. It was something deeper, something tied to his terrible purpose. Ooh. He said, but my mother tells me many Bene Gesserit of the schools don't know their ancestry. The genetic lines are always in our records, she said. Your mother knows that either she's of Bene Gesserit descent or her stock was acceptable in itself. Ooh. Then why couldn't she know who her parents are? Some do, many don't. We might, for example, have wanted to breed her to a close relative to set up a dominant in some genetic trait. We have many reasons. Whoa! Whoa! Again, Paul felt the offense against rightness. He said, You take a lot on yourselves. The Reverend Mother stared at him, wondering. Did I hear criticism in his voice? We carry a heavy burden. Blah blah. We carry a heavy burden, she said. Yeah, sure. Paul felt himself coming more and more out of the shock of the test. He leveled a measuring stare at her, said, You say maybe I'm the Quizits Haderach? What's that? A human Gom Jabbar? Paul, Jessica said, you mustn't take that home with I'll handle this, Jessica, the old woman said. Now, lad, do you know about the truth-sayer drug? You take it to improve your ability to detect falsehood, he said. My mother's told me. Have you ever seen truth trance? He shook his head. No. The drug's dangerous, she said. Sorry? The drug's dangerous, she said, but it gives insight. When a truth-sayer is gifted by the drug, she can look many places in her memory. In her body's memory, we look down so many avenues of the past, but only feminine avenues. Her voice took on a note of sadness. Yet, there is a place where no truth-sayer can see. We are repelled by it, terrorized. It is said a man will come one day and find in the gift of the drug his inward eye. He will look where we cannot, into both feminine and masculine beasts. Your Quizits Haderach? Yes, the one who can be many places at once. The Quizits Haderach. Many men have tried the drug. So many, but none has succeeded. They tried and failed? All of them? Oh no, she shook her head. They tried and died. That's the end of the first chapter. Fuck! I was... Shit, what was the last time I read? I muted myself and then did not unmute. Wait. Be right back. Okay, so I read the end of the chapter. Great. Uh, as I was saying, when I was muted, I think the movie is great. It depicts pretty close to the book. Uh, but it's not 100%. But again, I kind of get it. There are limitations to time, so they couldn't show everything even if they wanted to. But still, I think they cut out a few important parts. I mean, talking about the Jihad and the Orange Catholic Bible, I think those are important, right? Ah, bubbly water. I think those are important, but oh, shit. But I think they should have kept that. And the mentage. I mean, the mentage, we'll see soon enough. They are important. They shouldn't have been cut from the movie. It's pretty insane that they were cut from the movie, but whatever. But still, I think the movie was pretty good. Except the one thing. I mean, the Paul and Reverend Mother, they were great. I do think the box being so narrow. I know that's nitpicking, but it's a pet peeve. I mean the box being narrow, kind of gives the idea that his hand is trapped because it's enclosed, but being a big cube with a lot of space around it, kind of like it gives more of an idea that something is trapping it there, that it's not just stuck, right? I mean, it's so narrow that it feels like it's stuck. But if it being big, it's like, oh, like, why is he not removing? Is it just because he doesn't want to die? But at the same time, it looks like he can't, right? Um, but again, a pet peeve. But a part that I will criticize a lot. Why, like, Jessica? Oh my God, Jessica. Again, Rebecca Ferguson, best Jessica we've had yet. But holy fuck, why is she so sensitive? She's a Bene Gesserit. Why is she openly crying? I think the scene would be great if like, because, like, well, how can we show that she's desperate? I think there could be uh two ways. One, just show her standing still, not caring, but then do like a close up of her mouth or of her eyes and show it like twitching, right? That would be good. Uh, but as another option would be to, you know, take advantage of the fact that Rebecca Ferguson can act, and she did act super well in her desperation, but show it in a way that a Bene Gesserit would, by making it internal. You could have those two Bene Gesserit that in the movie she's in front of the door, she looks far, and there are two Bene Gesserit kind of like watching from afar. They could have had like they could have cut from the Bene Gesserit to Jessica, and Jessica being like super super calm. What they see is her being calm. She does not give a shit. She's controlling her emotions. But then you can cut to her being desperate as a internal, like, what's happening internally for her is her being desperate, and then cut back to her being calm, as just to show that, oh, to show the Bene Gesserit technique, like, she is desperate, she really thinks her son can die, and yet she knows to project calmness. I think that would be amazing. I think that would be great. Sorry. Uh, I think that would have been amazing. I really would have loved to see that, because Jessica being so openly catastrophic is not a Bene Gesserit thing, right? Uh, yeah, I don't know, but again, the yeah, sure, I'm pretty sure the Gom Jabbar is like a thing that it's on her finger, like it's a needle, but a it's like a those thumb tacks. No, that's not the thumb shields for sewing, but there's like, instead of protecting from a needle, it projects a needle. But I do think it's actually even more elegant to hold the needle like that. I think that, like, I think that I do think the first movie is great. The parts where they show are really really uh, faithful. And the changes that he made were, I mean, they're 50-50, as I said. Jessica's I don't like, but the Gom Jabbar, awesome. Uh, but again, he did cut out a lot. Cutting out the main chats is weird, to say the least. Uh, but still, it's a great movie, and It's a great book. Uh, I'm gonna read. So as it's a great book, let's go back to the book. Oh, actually, before that, I don't think. Yeah, he doesn't really talk about the visions here, right? Yeah, he didn't talk. I mean, I'm mixing things in my head, but yeah, he doesn't talk yet about the visions. Um, but the visions, oh, the visions are a whole other thing. But yeah, let's go back to the book and read another one of Princess Irulan's segments. Um, okay, to attempt an understanding of Muad'Dib without understanding his mortal enemies, the Harkonnens, is to attempt seeing truth without knowing falsehood. It is the attempt to see light without knowing darkness. It cannot be. From Manual of Muad'Dib by the Princess Irulan. Side note, that's not the only book she wrote. Uh, sorry, sneezing. Well, actually, sneezing again. Uh, let's go back to the books. In the and talk about one of the changes that they did that makes me mostly disappointed. It's the thing that most disappoints me because I mean he changed so much of the visual of them just to make it cinematic and like, oh, look, we are doing like, oh, it's, woo, look, he's so edgy, he's so evil, oh my god, he's like, he's bald and pale, wow. I don't like that. I don't like that change, but let's talk about it. Let's read about it. It was a relief globe of a world. Ah, fuck. Sorry, again. It was a relief globe of a world, partly in shadows, spinning under the impetus of a fat hand that glittered with rings. The globe sat on a free-form stand at one wall of a windowless room, whose other walls represented a patchwork of multicolored scrolls, film books, tapes, and reels. Light glowed in the room from golden balls hanging in mobile dispenser films. An ellipsoid desk with a top of jade pink petrified elaka wood stood at the center of the room. Variform Spencer chairs ringed it. Two of them occupied. In one sat a dark haired youth of about 16 years, round of face with sullen eyes. The other held a slender, short, effeminate face. Both young and men stared. Both youth and man stared at the globe, and the man half hidden in shadows spinning it. A chuckle sounded beside the globe. Do I do the chuckle? a oh sorry, a basso voice. Oh, ho ho ho. A basso voice rumbled out of the chuckle. There it is, Peter. The biggest man trap in all of history. and the Duke's headed into its jaws. Is it not a magnificent thing that I, the Baron Vladimir Harkonnen, do? Um, that's Peter, so assuredly, Baron. Uh, Assuredly, Baron, said the man. His voice came out tenor with a sweet musical quality. The fat hand descended onto the globe, stopped the spinning. Now, all eyes in the room could focus on the motionless surface and see what it was, the kind of globe made for wealthy collectors or planetary governors of the empire. It had the stamp of imperial handicraft about it. Latitude and longitude lines were laid in with hair-fine platinum wire. The polar caps were insets of finest cloud milk diamonds. I want that so much. I'll one day have it. The fat hand moved, tracing details on the surface. I invite you to observe, the vessel voice rumbled. Observe closely, Peter, and you too, feed Rotha, my darling, from 60 degrees north to 70 degrees south. These exquisite ripples, their coloring, does it not remind you of sweet caramels? And nowhere do you see blue of lakes or rivers or seas. And these lovely polar caps, so small, could anyone mistake this place? Arrakis, truly a unique, a superb setting for a unique victory. Let's do this. Okay. Uh, yeah, totally. That's the title. Sandor Arrakis, an epic ambient music journey inspired by the movie Dune. Blah. Well, sorry. I mean, yay. Yeah, awesome. That's I mean I'll put the links in the description later. It sounds awesome. Oh, there's two moons. Yeah, that's cool. So, going back. Arrakis, truly unique, a superb setting for a unique victory. A smile touched Peter's lips. And to think, Baron, the Padishah Emperor believes he's given the Duke your spice planet. How poignant. That's a nonsensical statement, the Baron rumbled. You say this to confuse young Feed Rotha, but it is not necessary to confuse my nephew. The sullen-faced youth stirred in his chair, smoothed a wrinkle in the back leotard he wore. Oh, sorry, I went back to the Baron voice. Smooth a wrinkle in the back leotard he wore. He sat upright as a discreet tapping sounded at the door in the wall behind him. Peter unfolded from his chair, crossed to the door, cracked it wide enough to accept a message cylinder. He closed the door, unrolled the cylinder, and scanned it. A chuckle sounded from him. Another. Um, well, the Baron demanded. The fool answered us, Baron. Whenever did an Atreides refuse the opportunity for a gesture? The Baron asked. Well, what does he say? He is most uncouth, Baron. Addresses you as a Harkonnen no. Sire et cher cousin. No title, nothing. It's a good name. Oh, it's a good name, the Baron growled, and his voice betrayed his patience. What does dear Little say? He says your offer of a meeting is refused. I have oft times met your treachery, and this is all men know. And this all men know. And? The Baron asked. He says the art of Camley still has admirers in the Empire. He signs it Duke Little of Arrakis. Peter begins to laugh. Ha ha ha. Uh, is it wait, maybe it's an honest laugh. Ha 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 ha. Of Arrakis. Oh my. This is almost too rich. Be silent, Peter, the Baron said, and the loft stopped as though shut off with a switch. Conley, is it? What is Conley? Let's search for it. Whoop. Canley. Knnly. Oh, Dune. Formal feud or vendetta under the rules of the Great Convention, carried on according to the strictest limitations. Cool. So it's like a blood feud. Awesome. So where was I? Canley, is it? The Baron asked. Vendetta, hey? And he uses the nice old world, so rich in tradition. To be sure, I know he means it. You made the peace gesture, Peter said. The forms have been obeyed. For a mentat, you talk too much, Peter. Peter, the Baron said, as he thought. I must do away with that one soon. He has almost outlived his usefulness. The Baron stared across the room as his mentat assassin, seeing the feature about him that most people noticed first. The eyes, the shaded slits of blue within blue, the eyes without any white in them at all. A grin flashed across Peter's face. It was like a mask, grimace beneath those eyes like holes. But Baron never has revenged me. But Baron never has revenged me more beautiful. It is to see a plan of the most exquisite treachery, to make little exchange Caledon for Dune, and without alternative, because the Emperor orders it. How waggish of you. In a cold voice, the Baron said, You have a flux of the mouth, Peter. Oh, you have a flux of the mouth, Peter. But I am happy, my Baron, whereas you are touched by jealousy. Peter! Baron, is it not regrettable you were unable to devise this delicious scheme by yourself? Some day I will have you strangled, Peter. Of a certainty, Baron, enfin, but a kind act is never lost, eh? Have you been chewing verite or semuta, Peter? Truth without fear surprises the Baron, Peter said. His face drew down into a caricature of a frowning mask. But you see, Baron, I know as a mentat I know as a mentat when you will send the executioner. You will hold back just so long as I am useful. To move sooner would be wasteful, and I'm yet of much use. I know what is it you learned from the lovely Dune planet. Waste not. True, Baron. The Baron continued to... How did I lose that? The Baron continued to stare at Peter. Peter. Feed Rotha squirmed in his chair. These wrangling fools, he thought. My uncle cannot talk to his mentat without arguing. Do they think I've nothing to do except listen to their arguments? Feed, the Baron said. I told you to listen and learn when I invited you in here. Are you learning? Yes, uncle. The voice was carefully subservient. Sometimes I wonder about you, Peter, the Baron said. I cause pain out of necessity, but I swear he takes a positive delight in it. For myself, I cannot feel pity towards the poor Duke Leto. Dr. Yue will move against him soon, and that will be the end of all the Atreides. But surely Leto will know whose hand directed the pliant doctor. and knowing that will be a terrible thing. Then the Duke must know when I encompass. Oh, I. That would be a terrible thing. Then why haven't you directed the doctor to slip a king jowl between his ribs quietly and efficiently? Peter asked. Oh, that's the wrong voice. uh, then why haven't you directed the doctor to slip a king jowl between his ribs quietly and efficiently? Peter asked. You talk of pity, but the Duke must know when I encompass his doom, the Baron said, and the other great houses must learn of it. The knowledge will give them pause. I will gain a bit more room to maneuver. The necessity is obvious, but I don't have to like it. Room to maneuver, Peter sneered. Already you have the Emperor's eyes on you, Baron. You move too boldly. One day the Emperor will send a legion or two of his Sardaukar down here on Giedi Prime, and that will be an end to the Baron Vladimir Harkonnen. You'd like to see that, wouldn't you, Peter? The Baron asked. You'd enjoy seeing the corpse of Sardaukar pillage through my cities and sack this castle. You'd truly enjoy that. Does the Baron need to ask? Does the Baron need to ask? Peter whispered. You should have been a Bashar of the corpse, the Baron said. You're too interested in blood and pain. Perhaps I was too quick with my promise of the spoils of Arrakis. Peter took 5 curiously mincing steps into the room, stopped directly behind the feed Rotha. There was a tight air of tension in the room, and the youth looked up at Peter with a worried frown. Do not toy with Peter, Baron, Peter said. You promised to me Lady Jessica. You promised her to me. For what, Peter? The Baron asked. For pain? Peter stared at him, dragging out the silence. Feed Rotha moved his dispenser chair to one side, said, Uncle, do I have to say? You said you'd. My darling Feed Rotha grows impatient, the Baron said. He moved within the shadows beside the globe. Patience, Feed, and he turned his attention back to the Mentat. What of the Dukeling, the child Paul, my dear Peter? The trap will bring him to you, Baron, Peter muttered. That's not my question, the Baron said. Baron, you recall that you predicted the Bene Gesserit, which would bear a daughter to the Duke. You were wrong, Mentat? I'm not often wrong, Baron, Peter said, and for the first time there was a fear. Oh, I'm not often wrong, Baron, Peter said, and for the first time there was fear in his voice. Give me that. I am not often wrong, and you know yourself these Bene Gesserit bear mostly daughters. Even the Emperor's consort had produced only females. Uncle, said Feyd-Rautha. Uncle, said Feyd-Rautha, you said there'd be something important here for me to. Listen to my nephew, the Baron said. He aspires to rule my barony, yet he cannot rule himself. The Baron stirred beside the globe, a shadow among shadows. Well then, Feyd-Rautha Harkonnen. Harkonnen? Yeah, well, there's no N. Harkonnen, I assume. I summoned you here, hoping to teach you a bit of wisdom. Have you observed our good Mentat? You should have learned something from his exchange. But uncle, a mostly efficient Mentat, Peter, wouldn't you say, Feed? Yes, but... Ah, indeed. But he consumes too much spice. Eats it like candy. Look at his eyes. He might have come directly from the Arakin labor pool. Ugh. Efficient, Peter. But he's still emotional and prone to passionate outbursts. Efficient, Peter, but he can still err. Peter spoke in a low, sullen tone. Did you call me here to impair my efficiency with criticism, Baron? Impair your efficiency? You know me better, Peter. I wish only for my nephew to understand the limitations of a Mentat. Are you already training my replacement? Oh, are you already training my replacement? Peter demanded. Replace you? Why, Peter? Where could I find another Mentat with your cunning and wisdom? The same place you found me, Baron. Perhaps I should at that, the Baron mused. You do seem a bit unstable lately, and the spice you eat. Are my pleasures too expensive, Baron? Do you object to them? My dear Peter. Okay. Uh, sorry, something came on my smartphone. Um, are my pleasures too expensive, Baron? Do you object to them? My dear Peter, your pleasures were tired to me. How could I object to that? I merely wish my nephew to observe this about you. Then I'm on full display, Peter said. Shall I dance? Shall I perform my various functions for the eminent feed raw? Precisely, Baron said. You are on display. Now be silent. He glanced at Feed Rotha, noting his nephew's lips, the full and pouting look of them, the Harkonnen genetic marker, now twisted slightly in amusement. This is a Mentat feed. He has been trained and conditioned to perform certain duties. The fact that it's encased in a human body, however, must not be overlooked. A serious drawback that I sometimes think the ancients, with their thinking machines, had the right idea. They were toys compared to me, Peter snarled. You yourself, Baron, could outperform those machines. Perhaps, the Baron said. Oh, well. He took a deep breath. Belched. Uh, uh, sorry. That was bad. Now, Peter, outline for my nephew the salient features of our campaign against the House Atreides. Function as a mentat for us, if you please. Baron, I've warned you not to trust one so young with this information. My observations of I'll be the judge of this, the Baron said. I'll give you an order, Mentat. Perform one of your various functions. So be it, Peter said. He straightened, assuming an odd attitude of dignity, as though it were another mask, but this time clothing his entire body. In a few days standard. Okay. In a few days standard, the entire household of Duke Leto will embark on a spacing guild liner for Arrakis. The guild will deposit them at the city of Arrakeen rather than our city of Carthag. Carthag. That's a civilization empire, I think. The Duke's Mentat, Fufir Hawat, will have concluded rightly that Arrakeen is easier to defend. Listen carefully, Feed, the Baron said. Observe the plans within plans within plans. Feed Rotha nodded, thinking, this is more like it. The old monster is letting me in on secret things at last. He must really mean for me to be his heir. There are several tangential possibilities, Peter said. I indicate that House Atreides will go to Arrakis. We must not, however, ignore the possibility the Duke has contracted within the Guild to remove him to a place of safety outside the system. Others, in like circumstances, have become renegade houses, taking family atomics and shields and fleeing beyond the Imperium. The Duke's too proud of a man for that, the Baron said. It is a possibility, Peter said. The ultimate effect for us would be the same, however. No, it would not, the Baron. No, it would not, the Baron growled. But um No, we would not, the Baron growled. I must have him dead, and his line ended. That's the high possibility, Peter said. There are certain preparations that indicate when the house is going renegade. The Duke appears to be doing none of these things. So, the Baron sighed. So, the Baron sighed. Get on with it, Peter. At King, Peter said, the Duke and his family will occupy the residency, lately the home of Count and Lady Fenring. Cool. The ambassador to the smugglers, the Baron chuckled. Ho ho ho. Ambassador to what? Feyd-Rautha asked. Your uncle makes a joke, Peter said. He calls Count Fenring ambassador to the smugglers, indicating the Emperor's interest in smuggling operations on Arrakis. Feyd-Rautha turned a puzzled stare on his uncle. Why? Don't be dense, Feyd, the Baron snapped. As long as the guild remains effectively outside Imperial control, how could it be otherwise? How else could spies and assassins move about? Feyd-Rautha's mouth made a soundless... Oh. Soundless. We've arranged diversions at the residency, Peter said. There will be an attempt on the life of the Atreides heir, an attempt which could succeed. Peter, the Baron rumbled, you indicated. I indicated accidents can happen, Peter said, and the attempt must appear valid. Ah, but the lad has such a sweet young body, the Baron said. Of course, he's potentially more dangerous than the father, with that witch mother training him, a cursed woman. Well, please continue, Peter. Howard will have divined that we will have an agent planted on him, Peter said. The obvious suspect is Dr. Yue, who is indeed our agent, but Howard has investigated and found that our doctor is a Suk school graduate with imperial conditioning, supposedly safe enough to minister even to the Emperor. Great store is set on imperial conditioning. It's assumed that ultimate conditioning cannot be removed without killing the subject. However, as someone once observed, given the right lever, you can move a planet. We've found the lever that moves the doctor. How? Feyd-Rautha asked. He found this fascinating subject. Everyone knew you couldn't subvert imperial conditioning. Another time, the Baron said. Continue, Peter. In place of Yue, Peter said, we'll drag a most interesting suspect across Howard's path. The very audacity of the suspect will recommend her to Howard's attention. Her? Feyd-Rautha asked. The Lady Jessica herself, the Baron said. Is it not sublime? Peter asked. Howard's mind will be so filled with this prospect, it will impair function as a mentat. He may even try to kill her. Peter frowned then, but I don't think he'll be able to carry it off. You don't want him to, eh? The Baron asked. You don't want him to, eh? The Baron asked. Don't distract me, Peter said. While Howard's occupied with the Lady Jessica, we'll divert him further with uprisings in a few garrison towns and the like. These will be put down. The Duke must believe he's gaining a measure of security. Then, when the moment is ripe, we'll signal Yue and move in with our major force. Go ahead and tell him all of it, the Baron said. We'll move in, strengthened by 2 legions of Sardaukar, disguised in Harkonnen livery. Sardaukar? Feyd-Rautha breathed, his mind focused on the dread Imperial troops, the killers without mercy, the soldier fanatics of the Padishah Emperor. "You see how I trust you, Feed," the Baron said. "No hint of this must ever reach another great house, and else the Landsred might unite against their imperial house, and there'd be chaos." "The main point," Peter said, "is this. Since House Harkonnen is being used to do imperial dirty work, we've gained a true advantage. It's a dangerous advantage, to be sure, but if used cautiously, will bring House Harkonnen greater wealth than that of any other house in the Imperium. Sorry. You have no idea how much wealth is involved, Feed," the Baron said. "Not in your wildest imaginations. To begin, we'll have an irrevocable directorship in the Chom Company." Feed Rotha nodded. Wealth was the thing. Choam was the key to wealth. Each noble house, dipping from the company's coffers whatever it could under the power of the directorship. Those Chom directorships, they were the real evidence of political power in the Imperium, passing with the shifts of voting strength within the Landsred as it balanced itself against the Emperor and his supporters. "The Duke Leto," Peter said, "may attempt to flee to the new Fremen scum along the desert's edge, or he may try to send his family into that imagined security, but that path is blocked by one of His Majesty's agents, the planetary ecologist. You may remember him, Kynes." Yeah. Feed remembers him, the Baron said. "Get on with it." Fuck. Feed remembers him, the Baron said. "Get on with it." "You do not drew very prettily, Baron," Peter said. "Get on with it. I command you," the Baron roared. Peter shrugged. If matters goes as planned, he said, "House Harkonnen will have a sub-fief on Arrakis within a standard year. Your uncle will have dispensation of that fief. His own personal agent will rule on Arrakis." "More profits," Feed Rotha said. "Indeed," the Baron said, and he thought, "It's only just. We're the ones who tamed Arrakis, except for the few mongrel Fremen hiding in the skirts of the desert, and some tame smugglers bound to the planet almost as tightly as the native labor pool. And the great houses will know that the Baron has destroyed the Atreides," Peter said. "They will know." "They will know," the Baron breathed. "Loveliest of all," Peter said, "is that the Duke will know too. He knows now. He can already feel the trap." "It's true the Duke knows," the Baron said, and his voice held a note of sadness. "He could not help but know. More's the pity." The Baron moved out and away from the globe of Arrakis. As he emerged from the shadows, his figure took on a dimension, rosely and immensely fat, and with subtle bulges beneath folds of his dark robes to reveal that all this fat was sustained partly by portable suspensors, harnessed to his flesh. He might weigh 200 standard kilos in actuality, but his feet would carry no more than 50 of them. "I am hungry," the Baron rumbled, and he rubbed his protruding lips with a beringed hand, stared down at Feed Rotha through fat, enfolded eyes. "Send for food, my darling. we will eat before we retire. Okay, so that was chapter 2. And as I said, uh, my the most annoying change, in my opinion. Uh, oh, look, there's another viewer. Hi. Probably someone in my family. Hi, mom, or hi, Jeff. Uh, but for saving my opinions on the video, what I don't like about the changes in the book. Firstly, again, as I said before, they took away the color and life. As the beginning of the book, the chapter said, there are tons of books, there are maps, there are films, there's light, and food, lots of food. Or no, there's no food in the scene yet. But like jade pink petrified elaka wood, Spencer chairs, film books, tapes, multicolored scrolls. Like, it's a colorful thing. He's not a coach of blandness like in the book, in the movie. In the book, he's like a baron, as in the name. He's like a he's medieval. He's got a fancy robe. He has all this color. He has all this. He's this globe with diamonds and platinum, and the spice color desert. It's it's colorful, and also another thing, the hair. Why are they bald? Is it just to show like what? It makes no sense. I don't know why they're bald. Is it because it feels imposing? It doesn't feel imposing, and makes it seem, as I said, culty. But it's not culty. Why is it that everyone from the House of Harkonnen is bald? It's stupid. It's dumb. Feed Rotha is not. He's not a growling animal like the movie. I mean, like, why? Why is he not in that talk? It shows that the Baron trusts him from the beginning, not just because Raban, failed. And the hair, again, the hair. Wow. Peter was fun, I guess. He was fine in the movie. I mean, I love Dest Melshane. I think that's his name, right? Dest Melshane. Or maybe that's just his Instagram handle. But the Baron, like, why do they always do this? Why does he fly? He doesn't fly. He weighs 200 pounds. His weight. It's not like he can fly. The suspensors in his flesh are so that he can, walk without lifting 200 pounds. It's like something that helps him walk, not fly. I don't think he ever flies. The closest I think is later on that, and he kind of he uses everything the suspensors have to like float back, not like fly to the ceiling. I think I'm gonna remember that later. But yeah, I don't like I hate the changes. And also another thing, as we saw, they say in chapter 2 that Dr. Yue will betray the Atreides. because it's not a plot twist. I don't know why they hid that in the movie. Is it because but it's like it was Doctor Yuve all along, but like we barely develop him, so we don't see how close they were at first. Also, uh, why? You know, like the thing with Dune, I always say this, and we'll see this soon enough. Uh, the thing is not that we don't know who the betrayer is. The thing is that we know who the betrayer is, and we are seeing the inner struggles of people. And it would be so much fun to see those inner struggles uh, in the movie. But he cuts so much. And things that shouldn't have been cut. Like, first of all, I mean, we'll get there, but he he made weird choices in where to begin, where to stop, but yeah, I think not talking about Yue was a mistake, or at least if you're gonna make it a plot twist, have more scenes with him, show him being weird and getting along with the family. You know, that's the thing. And again, Fried Rotha is like 1 year older than Paul, and it's fine. He's not a growling animal. He talks normally, you know. Sure, the Baron is, and again, the Baron is another thing. Sure, he has a basso voice, but he's not. I don't even know what to call him. He's not a he's not a war horn. Like, why does he have that voice? He's growling like, ugh. Why? It's just so that he sounds like imposing and evil. But I mean, he's a pedophile. Like, do we really need him to be more evil than that? In fact, do we need anything else to show his evil, right? Because he's less evil. Like, in the movie, he's less evil. He's just he's edgy. He's trying to be like, I take mud baths. Like, I kill I kill bald girls. Like, why? Why? You know, you're a medieval baron who uh fucks boys that looks like Paul Atreides, and and you know, that's it. You're already evil enough, but you're like honest evil. You're not trying to look evil. You just are evil, right? I mean, at least if for me it feels like that's the difference thing. Instead of yeah, I think that's it. In the books, the movie, it looks so forced. It's like, wow, I am so evil. Woo. Whereas in the book, it's like, wow, he is so fucking evil. Holy shit. uh, he doesn't need to say it. He doesn't need to show it. He just is. You know. He doesn't try to show it. He just does things, and it's awful. And he's gross. That's all we need, right? I don't know. Also, I mean, for who has already read the book, I'm trying to be as non-spoilery as I can, so I won't spoil things. But for those who read the book, I'm pretty sure the hair. He has hair, and that's important, right? Right? Like, we know why. Um, yeah, yeah, and I think Feed Rotha having black hair is also like a he's like Paul, you know. I think we need to remember Paul when when we look at him. Um, even though he's clearly raised by Harkonnens, as we'll see later on. Sorry. Uh, but yeah, I don't like those differences. Let's see how. Um, but still, I no, you know what? Yeah, not so. In the movies, I don't like anything related to the Harkonnens. Even the things that are cool, like yeah, he looks evil. The Harkonnen troops are oh no, not the Sardauker troops. They are like super weird and imposing. Wow, the throat singing. Whoa, like yeah, I agree, but I don't feel like that's the message of the book. I like it's so weird. They aren't like why? I mean, it would make more sense for the Sardauker to be we'll get there. We'll get there. Sorry, sorry. Uh, I get really emotional about you. Sorry, sorry. Um, what can I say about this chapter other than that? The color, the baldness, the Baron's a pedophile. Um, some have said, yes, I know. Let's just get that out of the way. There are subtle hints that the Baron is evil, not just because he's a pedophile, but like maybe because he's gay. Uh, yeah, I mean that's that's a possibility. There are things that you know maybe Frank Herbert was a bit homophobic. Um, but like I don't think it. I don't think that in the book it really. Well, I don't think it feels like that in the book. I feel like the parts where he's gay are. I think at least as someone reading in 2024. Well, I read it in 2020. No, 2015, 2014. I don't know. But when I read it, I didn't even think of that. I was thinking about the fact that he is using kids that look like Paul. Um, so like that's the kid part is awful. The look like my enemy's child is important, but the looks like a boy. I didn't think about that part. I mean the sex is not important, right? I mean we can all agree on that. The the my enemy's child is the important part. Um, the child, in fact, is the important part of his evilness. So I want to think about that. Um, someone sent me a message. Whatever. So yeah, we got that out of the way. Maybe Frank Herbert was homophobic, but I don't think. I'm just saying it because some people talk about it, but I genuinely don't feel like that was a message in the book. Uh, and even if it was, the fact that one could read without noticing the homophobic notes and just noticing the fact that they're children is more than enough uh, for it to not be homophobic, right? So that's out of the way. I won't mention homophobia again, probably. Uh, is there anything else about the chapter I can talk about? Probably, but I can't think of it. So let's go back to the movie, to the book. Mm, and here is another book. It's not the same one from the last chapter. No, it's another one. From Muad'Dib Family Commentary. Sorry. From Muad'Dib Family Commentaries by the Princess Irulan. See, another one. Thus spoke Saint Alaya of the Knife. The Reverend Mother must combine the seductive wiles of a courtesan with the untouchable majesty of a virgin goddess, holding these attributes in tension so long as the powers of her youth endure. For when youth and beauty have gone, she will find that the place between, once occupied by tension, has become a wellspring of cunning and resourcefulness. So, Saint Elia of the Knife. I kind of wish that I recorded this the first time I read it, because I know that I was intrigued by who Elia is. It says family commentaries, so I mean, there's something there. But who is she, right? And I don't know. I really wanted to know what my thoughts were. But again, that's another thing. I like how they reveal things. Like, we know now that Santa Laya is like full Benny Gesserit. Even though we've never met her, we don't even know who she is. And we're like, oh, she's like Benny Gesserit, sexist. Awesome. Great. But for those who haven't read, I'm gonna make a comment. It's not spoilery, but maybe if you think about it, it's more for the people who have read. I do think it's very telling and interesting that they chose. Yeah, no, that would probably be kind of spoilery because there's a comment I really want to make, but let's look. Count. I'll give you 30 seconds. When I say go, if you don't want spoilers, lower the sound, count to 30, and then unmute me. So let's see. And when look, 46, 30, go. I do think it's very telling that the moment that the Frank decided to mention Saint Alaya of the knife that killed the Baron comes right when Reverend Mother and Jessica are talking, and there is this tension of Reverend asked Jessica to bear daughters. I really love that. So 47 here. People will unmute me, and welcome back. The spoilers are done. Well, Jessica. Oh, let's go to the book. Well, Jessica, what have you to say for yourself? Asked the Reverend Mother. It was a near sunset at Castle Caladon on the day of Paul's ordeal. The two women were alone in Jessica's morning room, while Paul waited in the adjoining soundproofed meditation chamber. Jessica stood facing the south windows. She saw and yet did not see evening's banked colors across meadow and river. She heard and yet did not hear the Reverend's mother question. Again, sorry, quick addendum. If you remember the movie, there are no windows. Never. Why? Ugh. Why is Caladan so gray and blue? I mean, it's a green, blue, lush planet. It's like a planet rainforest, but whatever. Going back. She heard and yet did not hear the Reverend Mother's question. I have ADHD, I've been there. There had been another ordeal once, so many years ago. A skinny girl with hair the color of bronze, her body tortured by the winds of puberty, had entered the study of the Reverend Mother Gaius Helen Mohiam, Proctor Superior of the Bene Gesserit School on Wallach 9. Jessica looked down at her right hand, flexed the fingers, remembering the pain, the terror, the anger. Poor Paul, she whispered. I asked you a question, Jessica. The old woman's voice was snappish, demanding. What? Oh. Jessica tore her attention away from her past, faced the Reverend Mother, who sat with back to the stone wall between the two west windows. What do you want me to say? What do I want you to say? What do I want you to say? The old voice carried a tone of cruel mimicry. So I had a son, Jessica flared, and she knew she was being goaded into this anger deliberately. You were told to bear only daughters to the Atreides. It meant so much to him, Jessica pleaded, and you, in your pride, thought you could produce the Kwisatz Haderach. Jessica lifted her chin. I sensed the possibility. You thought only of your Duke's desire for a son, the old woman snapped, and his desires don't figure in this. An Atreides daughter could have been wed to her Harkonnen heir and sealed the breach. You've hopelessly complicated matters. We may lose both bloodlines now. Oh shit! They would have married Paul with Feige. Cool. You're not infallible, Jessica said. She braved the steady stare from the old eyes. Presently, the old woman muttered, What's done is done. I vowed never to regret my decision, Jessica said. How noble, the Reverend Mother sneered. No regrets. We shall see when you're fugitive with price on your head and every man's hand turned against you to seek your life and the life of your son. Jessica paled. Is there no alternative? Alternative? A Bene Gesserit should ask that? I ask only what you see in the future with your superior abilities. I see in the future what I've seen in the past. You well know the pattern of our affairs, Jessica. The race knows its own mortality and fears the stagnation of its heredity. It's in the bloodstream, the urge to mingle genetic strains without plan. The Imperium, the Chom Company, all the great houses, they are but bits of the flotsam in the path of the flood. Chom, Jessica muttered. I suppose it's already decided how they will redivide the spoils of Arrakis. What is Chon but the weather vane of our times, the old woman said. The Emperor and his friends now command 59.65% of the Chon directorship's votes. Certainly they smell profits, and likely as others smell those same profits, with his voting strength will increase. This is the pattern of history, girl. Wait, but if he has 59%, You already won the girl. The vote. Like, what? Well, that's certainly what I need right now, Jessica said. A reveal of history. Don't be facetious. Oh, sorry. Don't be facetious. Fuck. Facetious. Okay. Don't be facetious, girl. You know as well as I do what forces surround us. We have a three-point civilization, the imperial household balanced against the federal great houses of the Landsred, and between them, the guild with its damnable monopoly on interstellar transport. In politics, the tripod is the most unstable of all structures. Huh. It'd be bad enough within the complication of a feudal trade culture which turns its back on the most science. Sorry. Jessica spoke bitterly. Chips in the path of the flood. And these chips here, this is the chips in the path of the flood. And this chip here, this is the localator. And this one's his son. And this one's... Oh, shut up, girl. You entered this with full knowledge of the delicate edge you walked. I am Benny Gesserit. I exist only to serve, Jessica quoted. Truth, the old woman said, and all we can hope for now is to prevent this from erupting into general conflagration, to salvage what we can of the key bloodlines. Jessica closed her eyes, feeling tears press out beneath the lids. She fought down the inner trembling, the outer trembling, the uneven breathing, the ragged pulse, the sweating of the palms. Presently, she said, I will pay for my own mistake, and your son will pay with you. I'll shield him as well as I'm able. Sorry, I'll shield him as well as I'm able. Shield, the old woman snapped. You well know the weakness there. Shield your own son too much, Jessica, and he'll not grow strong enough to fulfill any destiny. Jessica turned away, looked out the windows at the gathering darkness. Is it really that terrible, that planet of Arrakis? Bad enough, but not all bad. The Missionaria Protectiva has been in there and softened it up somewhat. The Reverend Mother heaved herself to her feet, straightened a fold in her gown. Call the boy in here. I must be leaving soon. Must you? The old woman's voice softened. Jessica, girl, I wish I could stand in your place and take her sufferings, but each of us must make her own path. I know. You're as dear to me as any of my own daughters, but I cannot let that interfere with duty. I understand the necessity. What you did, Jessica, and why you did it. We both know. But kindness forces me to tell you there is little chance your lad will be the Bene Gesserit totality. You mustn't let yourself hope too much. Jessica shook tears from the corner of her eyes. It was an angry gesture. You make me feel like a little girl again, reciting my first lesson. She forced the words out. Humans must never submit to animals. A dry sob shook her. In a low voice, she said, I've been so lonely. Sorry. It should be one of the tests, the old woman said. Humans are almost always lonely. Now, summon the boy. He's had a long, frightening day. But he's had time to think and remember. And I must ask the other questions about these dreams of his. Jessica nodded, went to the door of the meditation chamber, opened it. Paul, come on in now. Paul emerged with a stubborn slowness. He stared at his mother as though she were a stranger. Wariness veiled in his eyes when he glanced at the Reverend Mother, but this time he nodded to her. The nod one gives an equal. He heard his mother close the door behind him. Young man, the woman said, let's return to this dream business. What do you want? Do you dream every night? Not dreams worth remembering. I can remember every dream, but some are worth remembering and some aren't. How do you know the difference? I just know it. The old woman glanced at Jessica, back to Paul. What did you dream last night? Was it worth remembering? I have to sneeze. Be right back. Yes, Paul closed his eyes. I dreamed a cavern, and water, and a girl there, very skinny with big eyes. Sorry, uh, had to sneeze. Very skinny with big eyes. Oh, her eyes are all blue, no whites in them. Oh, I talk to her and tell her about you, about seeing the Reverend Mother on Caledon. Paul opened his eyes. And the thing you tell this strange girl about seeing me, did it happen today? Paul thought about it, then about this. Then, yes, I tell the girl you came and put a stamp of strangeness on me. Stamp of strangeness, the old woman breathed. And again, she shot a glance at Jessica. Returned her attention to Paul. Tell me truly now, Paul, do you often have dreams of things that happen afterward exactly as you dreamed of them? Yes, and I've dreamed about that girl before. Oh, oh, you know her? I will know her. Oh, tell me about her. Oh, again, Paul closed his eyes. Oh, we're in a little place in some rocks where it's sheltered. It's almost night, but it's hot, and I can see patches of sand out of an opening in the rocks. We're waiting for something, for me to go meet some people. And she's frightened, but trying to hide it from me. And I'm excited, and she says, tell me about the waters of your home world, Usul. Oh, Paul opened his eyes. Isn't that strange? My home world's Caledon. I've never heard of a planet called Usul. That's a really I love that part. I mean, it's so good. I love that. Let's go to the other. Wait, is that fuck? Is it the same song? Well, whatever. Um, I love him talking about her, and I love that. I love this sentence. Like, tell me about the waters of your home world, Usul. It really does look like I'm pretty sure the first time I read this, I also I was also confused. I love this book. Well, let's go back. Is there more to this dream? Jessica prompted. Yes, but maybe she was calling me Usul, Paul said. I just thought of that. Again, he closed his eyes. She asks me to tell her about the waters, and I take her hand, and I say, I'll tell her a poem, and I tell her the poem. But I have to explain some words, like beach, and surf, and seaweed, and seagulls. What poem? The Reverend Mother asked. Paul opened his eyes. It's just one of Gurney Halleck's tone poems for sad times. Behind Paul, Jessica began to recite. Oh, by the way, in the movie, Gurney Halleck does not sing. Haha. Which is awful. I mean, fuck. But back to the book. Behind Paul, Jessica began to recite. I remember salt smoke from a beach fire and shadows under pines. Solid, clean, fixed. Seagulls perched at the tip of land, white upon green, and a wind comes through the pines to sway the shadows. The seagulls spread their wings, lift, and fill the sky with screeches, and I hear the wind blowing across our beach and the surf, and I see that our fire has scorched the seaweed. I love this poem. That's the one, Paul said. The old woman stared at Paul, then, young man, as a proctor of the Bene Gesserit, I seek the Kwisatz Haderach, the male who truly can become one of us. Your mother sees this possibility in you, but she sees with the eyes of a mother. Possibility, I see, too, but no more. She fell silent, and Paul saw that she wanted him to speak. He waited her out. uh, Basage, Chad, Sigma, Alpha. I might do a reading as a Gen Alpha. I mean, I could do the. You were told to bear only. You were told to bear only. Uh, how do they call women? No, that's awful. You were told to bear only queens, the Reverend Mother said. Uh, and Jessica responded, but the Duke, he wanted a Sigma male. That would be fire. I would do that. As I said, she fell silently, and Paul. She felt silent. She fell silent, and Paul saw that she wanted him to speak. He waited her out. Presently, she said, "As you will, then. Your depths within, your depths in you. Ah, fuck. As you will, then. You have depths in you. That I'll grant." "May I go now?" he asked. "Don't you want to hear what the Reverend Mother can tell you about the Kwisatz Haderach?" Jessica asked. She said those who tried for it died. "But I can help you if a few hints as why they failed," the Reverend Mother said. She talks of hints, Paul thought. She doesn't really know anything, and he said, "Hint them." "And be damned to me?" She smiled wryly, a crisscross of wrinkles in the old face. "Very well. That which submits rules." He felt astonishment. She was talking about such elementary thing as tension within meaning. Did she think his mother had taught him nothing at all? "That's a hint?" he asked. "We are not here to bandy words or quibble over their meaning," the old woman said. "The willow submits to the wind and prospers until one day it is many willows, a wall against the wind. This is the willow's purpose." Paul stared at her. She said purpose, and he felt the word buffet him, reinfecting him with terrible purpose. He experienced a sudden anger at her. Where am I? Oh, sudden anger at her. Factious old witch with her mouth full of platitudes. "You think I could be the Kwisatz Haderach," he said. "You talk about me, but you haven't said one thing about what we can do to help my father." "I've heard you talking to my mother. You talk as though my father were dead. Well, he isn't. If there were a thing to be done for him, we'd have done it," the old woman growled. We may be able to salvage you. Doubtful, but possible. But for your father, nothing. When you've learned to accept that as a fact, you've learned a real Bene Gesserit lesson." Paul saw how the words shook his mother. He glared at the old woman. How could she say such a thing about his father? What made her so sure? His mind seethed with resentment. The Reverend Mother looked at Jessica. You've been training him in the way. I've seen the signs of it. I have done the same in your shoes, and devil take the rules. Jessica nodded. Now I caution you, said the old woman, to ignore the regular order of training. His own safety requires the voice. He already has a good start in it, but we both know how much more he needs. And that, desperately, she stepped closer to Paul, stared down at him. Goodbye, young human. I hope you make it. But if we don't, well, we shall yet succeed. Once more she looked at Jessica. A flicker sign of understanding passed between them. Then the old woman swept from the room, her hopes hissing, with not another backward glance. The room and its occupants were shut from her thoughts. But Jessica had caught one glimpse of the Reverend Mother's face as she turned away. There had been tears on the seamed cheeks. The tears were more unnerving than any other word or sign that had passed between them this day. Ay, ay. I love this book so much. That was chapter 3. Uh, I love so much everything about this. uh, it explains so much. And I get it. In a movie, it would be boring. Yes. But I don't know. I like it. I I think even if a movie did it 100%, it would be fine. Or a series. I think a series are fucks. A lot of little put. I think even my cat. I think even a series would be awesome. There would be more time to explore things, but the visuals would be lacking because it would be too expensive. But still, I love the book. And this part is so amazing. The way they talk, and he senses she's not being 100% honest. Also, Choam. I I love Choam as a concept. The uh, the I know this. It's combine Honet Ober Advanced Merchants. Uh, combine Honet Ober Advanced no Advancer Merchants. Combine Honet Ober Advancer Merchants. Well, it's it's this company that deals with the spices and the trading. Who controls Strom controls the universe or the planetary system. I think it's the universe. Uh, the galaxy. Sorry. Uh, no, I think it's the universe, but it could be the galaxy. Uh, I like them. I like them. I mean, they do all the compass basically, but all the what? All the what compass? All the commerce, the trading. uh, but the biggest one is the melange, the spice. I like them. They make sense. I don't like that the movie ignored them. That's a crime. But yeah, whatever. But as I said about the chapter, I think I don't think I know. I love this chapter. It reveals so much. It says the things about the Kwisatz Haderach. Um, Also, it's not a spoiler. I could talk about this later, but I just want to get it out of the way as well. The Bene Gesserit are not are not Frank saying that men are better. In fact, I think it's his books prove that they are equal. That will be a spoiler for getting to it, but uh, I won't. uh, but the books almost prove that women and men are equal. But the thing is that you have to understand about the Kwisatz Haderach is, and the fact that they only have women, is not that men can't be Bene Gesserit or that women can't be the Kwisatz Haderach. It's more that uh, men, like, what the Bene Gesserit does is that they are women, they go out to someone that has the genes they want, usually a royal, and they have sex with them. They get pregnant. They go back to their temples. No one ever knows they were pregnant. uh, and they have the daughter. And the daughter is there. She's trained as a Bene Gesserit. She grows. She repeats the process. Well, if you have a man, that process gets a little more complicated because if you want the genes of a family, uh, you would have to have a baby with a female. Well, then what? You get her pregnant, a non Bene Gesserit woman, and what then? She's there. She is a royal of a family. She, you know, she's gonna keep the baby for her. But you don't want that. You want the baby for yourselves. So you're gonna have to kidnap the woman and have the baby there. But like, ugh, that's such a hassle, right? Imagine kidnapping all females. That's, I mean, and everybody would hate you. The Bene Gesserit would be hated. So, what's the? So obviously, the easier path: have women, have sex with the royals, males, go back to the temple, have females, repeat process. The Kwisatz Haderach, the first Kwisatz Haderach, at least my imagination, is that it would be a male because of another thing. Well, firstly, to kind of prove the concept, because I think that when you're trained as a Bene Gesserit, you can only see your bloodline, your sex bloodline. So the females can only see the female past, and the males can only connect to their male past. And I think the death happens when they try to connect with the other. Um, but the Kwisatz Haderach is able to connect to both pasts, female and male. Well, if you do that with a man, you can first prove the concept. He is now able to connect with both pests, and also a male can have like what 100 sex per day, and he can get 100 women pregnant in one day, and in 9 months there will be 100 Kwisatz Well, 101. A woman Kwisatz would have one child every 9 months. So I think the fact that they want a man is that you can replicate it easier. So I'm pretty sure that the Bene Gesserit would eventually become a 50-50 organization. Half men, half women. And then just inbreed. Uh, which, I mean, she admitted it to it, right? They can't know their past because they might want to have, you know, uh, a Harkonnen have a baby with a Harkonnen. So yeah, I think that's a point I like to point out. The Bene Gesserit are not saying the male would be uh, better. Neither that only females are good. It's just in terms of logistics, women are pregnant, men uh, make women pregnant. Uh, so yeah. Also another thing, it shows that there are like two conflicting forces between Jessica and the Reverend Mother. The Reverend Mother, Jessica, as she says, loves her as a mom but hates her as a mentor. Uh, the Reverend Mother seems to have a similar relationship. She loves Jessica as a daughter, but also hates her as a student. She betrayed the the council, basically. And I love Paul in this dialogue. When he talks about the girl, I love that so much. I will get into it later, but I love I love the relationship. The way he talks about her, I love that. In the poems, ugh, I love it. Should I read another chapter? I kinda have to make food in a while. Let's see. I think the next chapter is the multiple talks. Oh, I like that. Yeah, you know what? I'll read another chapter. I feel like it. Let's see. Okay. So, again, another book of Princess Irulan from A Child's History of Muad'Dib by the Princess Irulan. Irulan, 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 I don't know. You have read that Muad'Dib had no playmates. Oh fuck, I need to sneeze. Be right back. Ugh, fuck. Okay, I'm back. You have read that Muad'Dib had no playmates his own age on Caladan. I think Caladan is better than Caladan. Caladan. The dangers were too great, but Muad'Dib did have wonderful companion teachers. There was Gunny. Fuck. There was Gurney Halleck, the troubadour warrior. You will sing some of Gurney's songs as you read along in this book. There was Stufir Hawat, the old Mantat master of assassins, who struck fear even into the heart of the Badishash Emperor. Oof. There were Duncan Idaho, the sword master of the Jinas, and Dr. Wellington Yue, a name black in treachery but bright in knowledge. The Lady Jessica, who guided her son, in the Bene Gesserit way, and of course the Duke Leto, whose qualities as a father have long been overlooked. Ah, huge. So, from a child's history of Muad'Dib, I would love that book. I mean, reading the book starts when he's 15. I always thought it was 14 for some reason, but it's 15, right? The the book starts when he's 15. But I would really like to see his uprising, his upbringing. Seeing, a child Paul having to learn why he can't have many friends, why he can only talk to adults, having to be like overly mature, uh, basically having his childhood like stolen. Uh, it would, I think, it would give more context as to how he becomes who he is. Which I think I think Frank Herbert knows that, which is why he actually put this book, because it's like, oh, I am Princess Irulan is like, again, who is she? We don't know yet, but she's like telling people why uh she's like telling people what his childhood was like, so people understand how he became who he is, which again we don't know yet in this part of the book. We know, of Muad'Dib. We know there are strange people and there was something, but we don't know yet what has happened. But we know that there is a need for explanation, right? He has done something that needs explanation, and I like that. I like that, and I would read the fuck out of a book, uh, teaching how. Maybe I mean, I would love a book about Paul's childhood, like his training as a Bene Gesserit, and as well, you'll see. It would all be so fun. Well, let's read the chapter. Fulfir Hawat slipped into the training room of Castle Kaladin, closed the door softly. He stood there a moment, feeling old and tired and storm-leathered. His left leg ached where it had been slashed once in the service of the old duke. He 3 generations of them now, he thought. He stared across the big room, bright with the light of noon pouring through the skylights, saw the young boy with back to the door, intent on papers and charts spread across an L table. How many times must I tell that lad never to settle himself with the back to a door? Howard cleared his throat. Paul remained bent over his studies. A cloud shadow passed over the skylights. Again, Howard cleared his throat. Paul straightened, spoke without turning. I know, I'm sitting with my back to a door. Howard suppressed a smile, strolled across the room. Paul looked up at the grizzled old man who stalked at a corner of the table. Howard's eyes were two pools of alertness in the dark and deeply seamed face. I heard you coming down the hall, Paul said, and I heard you open the door. The sounds I make could be imitated. I'd know the difference. He might at that, Howard thought. That witch mother of his is giving him the deep training, certainly. I wonder what her precious school thinks of that. Maybe that's why they sent the old proctor here. tow whip our dear Lady Jessica into line. Howard pulled a chair across from Paul, sat down facing the door. He did it pointedly, leaned back, and studied the room. It struck him as an odd place suddenly. It struck him as an odd place suddenly. A stranger place, with most of its hardware already gone off to Arrakis. A training table remained, and a fancy mirror with its crystal prisms quiescent. The target's dummy beside it, patched and padded, looking like an ancient foot soldier, maimed and battered in the wars. There stand I, Howard thought. Thufir, what are you thinking? Paul asked. Howard looked at the boy. I was thinking we'll all be out of here soon and likely never see the place again. Does that make you sad? Sad? Nonsense. Parting with friends is a sadness. A place is only a place. He glanced at the charts on the table. In Arrakis is just another place. Did my father send you up to test me? Howard scowled. The boy had such observing ways about him. He nodded. Your thinking it'd have been nicer if he'd come up himself, but you must know how busy he is. He'll be along later. I've been studying about the storms of Arrakis. The storms, I see. They sound pretty bad. That's too cautious of a word. Bad. Those storms build up across 6 or 7,000 kilometers of flatlands, feed on anything that can give them a push. Coriolis force, other storms, anything that has an ounce of energy in it. They can blow up to 700 kilometers an hour, loaded with everything loose that's in their way. Sand, dust, everything. They can eat flesh off bones and etch the bones to slivers. Why don't they have weather control? Arrakis has special problems. Costs are higher, and there be maintenance and the like. The guild wants a dreadful high price for satellite control, and your father's house isn't one of the big rich ones, lad. You know that. Have you ever seen the Fremen? The lad's mind is darting all over today, Howard thought. Like as not, I have seen them. There is little to tell them from the folk of the Graben Sink. They all wear those great flowing robes, and they stink to heaven in any closed space. It's from those suits they wear, call them still suits, that reclaim the body's own water. Still suits. Paul swallowed, suddenly aware of the moisture in his mouth, remembering a dream of thirst. By the way, hydrate. I'm gonna drink some water. Ah, I have about a week's worth of water here for me to drink, like just now. But a week's worth for a Fremen, right? The dream of thirst that people could once sow for water they had to recycle their body moisture struck with him a feeling of desolation. Water's precious there, he said. Howard nodded, thinking, perhaps I'm doing it. Getting across to him the importance of that planet as an enemy. Sorry. It's madness to go in there without that caution in our minds. Paul looked up at the skylight, aware that it had begun to rain. He saw the spreading wetness on the grey metaglass. Water, he said. You'll learn a great concern for water, Howard said. As the Duke's son, you'll never want for it, but you'll see the pressures of thirst all around you. Paul wet his lip with his tongue. Thinking back to the sorry, thinking back to the day a week ago and the ordeal with the Reverend Mother. She, too, had said something about water starvation. You learn about the funeral plains, she'd said, about the wilderness that is empty, the wasteland there nothing lives except the spice and the sandworms. You stain your eye pits to reduce the sun glare. Shelter will mean a hollow out of the wind and hidden from view. You ride upon your own 2 feet without thopter or ground. What? How am I getting lost? Without thopter or ground car or mount. I have received a message. Sorry. Sorry, I'm back. It was an important message. You stain your eye pits to reduce the sun glare. Shelter will mean a hollow out of the wind and hidden from view. You ride upon your own 2 feet without thopter or ground car or mount. And Paul had been caught more by her tone, sing-song and wavering, and then by her words. When you leave upon Arrakis, she said, Kala, the land is empty. The moons will be your friend, the sun your enemy. Paul had sensed his mother come up beside him, away from her post guarding the door. She had looked at the Reverend Mother and asked, Do you see no hope, your reverence? Not for the father. And the old woman had waved Jessica to silence, looked down at Paul. Grave this on your memory, lad. A world is supported by 4 things. She held up 4 big knuckled fingers. The leaning of the wise, the justice of the great, the prayers of the righteous, and the valors of the brave. The leaning of the wise, the justice of the great, the prayers of the righteous, and the valor of the great. She doesn't repeat that. I'm the one repeating it. I like that. But, going back, but all of these are as nothing. She closed her fingers into a fist, without a ruler who knows the art of ruling. Make that the science of her tradition. A week had passed with the Reverend Mother. Her words were only now beginning to come into full register. Now, sitting in the training room with Duffer Howard, Paul felt a sharp pang of fear. He looked across the Mentad's puzzled frown. Where were you wool gathering that time? Howard asked. I like that, wool gathering. Did you meet the Reverend Mother? That truth-sayer witch from the Imperium? Howard's eyes quickened with interest. I met her. She, Paul hesitated, found that he couldn't tell Howard about the ordeal. The inhibitions went deep. Yes, what did she... Paul took 2 deep breaths. She said a thing. He closed his eyes, calling up the words. And when he spoke, his voice unconsciously took on some of the old woman's tone. You, Paul Atreides, descendant of kings, son of a duke, you must learn to rule. It's something none of your ancestors learned. Paul opened his eyes, said, That made me angry, and I said my father rules an entire planet. And she said, He's losing it. And I said my father was getting a richer planet. And she said, He'll lose that one too. And I wanted to run and warn my father, but she said he already been warned. By you, by mother, by many people. True enough, Howard muttered. Then why are we going? Paul demanded. Because the Emperor ordered it. And because there's hope in spite of what the witch spy said. What else is spouted from this ancient fountain of wisdom. uh, Paul looked down at his right hand, clenched into a fist beneath the table. Slowly, he willed his muscles to relax. Relax. She put some kind of hold on me, he thought. How? She asked me to tell her what it is to rule, Paul said, and I said that one commands, and she said I had some unlearning to do. She hit a mark there right enough, Howard thought. He nodded for Paul to continue. She said a ruler Jeez. She said a ruler must learn to persuade and not to compel. She said he must lay the best coffee hearth to attract the finest men. How'd you figure your father attracted men like Duncan and Gurney? Howard asked. Paul shrugged. Then she said a good ruler has to learn his world's language, that it's different for every world. And I thought she meant they didn't speak Galak on Arrakis, which I'm guessing is the English, but she said that wasn't it at all. She said she meant the language of the rocks and growing things, the language you don't hear with just your ears. Ears. And I said that's what Dr. Yui calls the mystery of life. Howard chuckled. Haha, how that suited her. I think she got mad. She said the mystery of life isn't a problem to solve, but a reality to experience. So I quoted the first law of mentat at her. A process cannot be understood by stopping it. Understanding must move with the flow of the process, must join it and flow with it. That seemed to satisfy her. He seemed to be getting over it, Howard thought. But that old witch frightened him. What did she do? Thufir, Paul said. Will Arrakis be as bad as she said? Nothing could be that bad, Howard said and forced a smile. Take those Fremen, for example, the renegade people of the desert. By first approximation analysis, I can tell you there are many, many more of them than Imperium suspects. People live there, lad, a great many people, and Howard put a sinewy finger beside his eye. They hate Harkonnens with a bloody passion. You must not breathe a word of this, lad. I tell you only as your father's helper. My father has told me of Salusa Secundus, Paul said. Do you know, Turfir? It sounds much like Arrakis. Perhaps not quite as bad, but much like it. We do not really know of Salusa Secundus today, Howard said. Only what it was like long ago, mostly. But what it is known, you're right on that score. Will the Fremen help us? It's a possibility, Howard stood up. I leave today for Arrakis. Meanwhile, you take care of yourself. For an old man who's fond of you, hey? Heh. Come around here like the good lad and sit facing the door. It's not that I think there is any danger in the castle. It's just a habit I want you to form. Paul got to his feet, moved around the table. You're going today? Today it is, and you'll be following tomorrow. Next time we meet, it'll be on the soil of your new world. He gripped Paul's right arm, the bicep. Keep your knife arm free, eh? In your shield at full charge. He released the arm, patted Paul's shoulder, whirled and strode quickly to the door. Thufir, Paul called. Howard turned, standing in the open doorway. Don't sit with your back to any doors, Paul said. A grin spread across the seamed old face. That I won't, lad. Depend on it. And he was gone, shutting the door softly behind him. Paul sat down where Howard had been, straightened the papers. One more day here, he thought. He looked around the room. We're leaving. The idea of departure was suddenly more real to him than he had ever been before. He recalled another thing the old woman had said about the world being the sum of many things. The people, the dirt, the growing things, the moons, the tides. The air, the ground, that was just Mary. That was Mary just messing around. Sorry. The moons, the tides, the suns, the unknown sum called nature, a vague summation without any sense of the now. And he wondered, what is the now? The door across Paul banged open, and keep that in mind, an ugly lump of a man lurched through, preceded by a handful of weapons. Well, Gurney Halleck, Paul called. Are you the new weapons master? Halleck kicked the door shut with one heel. You'd rather I came to play games. I know, he said. He glanced around the room, noticing the Howard's man already been over it, checking, making it safe for a Duke's heir. The subtle code signs were all around. Paul watched, again, keep that in mind, Paul watched the rolling, ugly man himself back in motion, veer toward the training table with the loaded weapons, saw the 9-string balisette slung over Gurney's shoulder with the multi-peak woven through the strings near the head of the fingerboard. Halleck dropped the weapons on the exercise table, lined them up, the rapiers, the bodkins, the king jaws, and the slow pellet stunners, the shield belts, the inkvine scar along his jawline writhed as he turned, casting a smile across the room. So you don't even have a good morning for me, you young imp, Alex said. And what barb did you sink in, old Howard? He passed me in the hall like a man running to his enemy's funeral. Paul grinned. Of all his father's men, he liked Gurney Halleck the best. Knew the man's moods and deviltry, his humors, and thought on him more as a friend than as a hired sword. Halleck swung the balisette off his shoulder, began tuning it. If you won't talk, you won't. Paul stood, advanced across the room, calling out, Well, Gurney, do we come prepared for music when it's fighting time? So it says for our elders today, Halleck said. He tried a chord on the instrument, nodded. Where's Duncan Idaho? Idaho, sorry. It's funny saying Idaho. Duncan Idaho, Paul asked. Isn't he supposed to be teaching me weaponry? Duncan's gone to lead the second wave onto Arrakis, Halleck said. All you have left is poor Gurney, who's fresh out of fight and spoiling for music. He struck another chord, listened to it, smiled. And it was decided in the council that you, being such a poor fighter, we'd best teach you the music trade so you won't waste your entire life. Maybe you'd better sing me a lay then, Paul said. I want to be sure how not to do it. Ah, ha, ha, Gurney laughed, and he swung into Galatian girls, his multi-pick a blur over the strings as he sang. I think we have multi-picks IRL, right? Guitar pick for various strings. If I search multi-pick, will it show? I'm sure I saw somewhere of a pick. No, that's. I'm sure I saw somewhere a pick that has like multiple. Oh. That's not what I was imagining, but that works. Maybe guitar strange pick. Ah, that's what I was. That's literally the thing I was imagining. Is it? I think it is. Like this is. Yeah. Like this picks various things at once. That's what I knew there was something there. Uh, but he swung into Galatian girls, his multi-peak a blur as the strings as he sang. Do I have to sing? I have no clue what the thing is, and I can't sing. I'm sorry for what you're about to hear. Oh, 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 the Galatian girls will. Oh, no. Oh, no. Jesus. Okay. Oh, 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 the Galatian girls will do it for pearls, and they are keen for water. But if you desire dames like a consuming flames, try a Caledonian daughter. Jesus fucking Christ. Okay. I did not remember this. Wow. Well, at least I feel vindicated in the fact that I was right. People from Iraqis are called Arakim. But holy shit. I fuck. I did not remember this. Look, it fits Gurney, okay? That's good characterization at least. But holy Christ. They will do it for pearls, and they are keen for waters. For water. Yeah, yay. Yay, yay. You know when your grandparents put on like old music that they listened in their youth and you're like, wow, that's yeah. It's like hearing Grease when you're older and you're like, and then like Summer Nights is great, but once every 10 seconds you're like, ugh. whenever like actually whenever Danny opens his mouth, right? It's like, ugh, no. Yeah, Jesus. Well, back to the book. Not bad for such a poor hand with the pick, Paul said. But if my mother heard you singing a body like that in the castle, she'd have your ears on the outer wall for decoration. Bless Lady Jessica. Holy fuck. Gurney pulled at his left ear. Poor decoration too. They have they have been bruised so much listening at Keel's young while a young lad I know practiced some strange ditties on his belly set. It's uh I like how they say that Jessica would hate Gurney's songs. For those who have read the book, wink, wink. But yeah. So you've forgotten what it's like to find sand in your bed, Paul said. He pulled the shield from the belt from the table, buckled it fast around his waist. Then let's fight. Halleck's eyes went wide in mock surprise. So it was your wicked hand. So it was your wicked hand did that deed. Guard yourself today, young master. Guard yourself. He grabbed up a rapier, laced the air with it. I'm a hell fiend out for revenge. Paul lifted the companion rapier, bent it in his hands, stood in the Argyle 1 foot forward. He left his manner go solemn in a comic imitation of Dr. Hewitt. What a dolt. My father sends me for weaponry. Paul intoned. This dotish Gurney Halleck has forgotten the first lesson for a fighting man armed and shielded. Paul snapped the force button at his waist. felt the crinkled skin tingling of the defensive field as his forehead and down his at his forehead and down his back. Heard external sounds take on characteristic shield filtered flatness. In shield fighting, one moves fast on defense, slow on attack. Attack has the sole purpose of tricking the opponent into a misstep, setting him up for the attack's sinister. Mm. The shield turned fast and whipped it back for a slow thrust timed to enter Shield's mindless defenses. Halleck watched the action, turned at the last minute to let the blunted blade pass his chest. Speed, excellence, he said, but you were wide open for an underhanded counter with a slip tip. Paul stepped back, chagrined. I should wipe your backside for such carelessness. Fuck. I should wipe your backside for such carelessness, Halleck said. He lifted a naked king jowl from the table and held it up. This is the hand of an enemy. This, in the hand of an enemy, can let out your life's blood. You're an apt pupil, none better. But I've warned you that you... Ah, fuck. You're an apt pupil, none better. But I've warned you that not even in play do you let a man side your guard with death in his hand. I guess I'm in the mood for it today, Paul said. Mood? Halleck's voice betrayed his outrage, even through the shield's filtering. What has mood to do with it? You fight when the necessity arises, no matter the mood. Mood's a thing for cattle, for making love, or playing the balisette. It's not for fighting. I'm so sorry, Gurney. You're not sorry enough. Halleck activated his own shield, crouched with Kinjal out thrust in left hand, the rapier poised in his right. Now I say, guard yourself for true. He leaped high to one side, then leaned forward, pressing a furious attack. Paul fell back, parrying. He felt the field crackling as shield edges touched and repelled each other, sensed the electric tingling of the contact along his skin. What's gotten into Gurney? He asked himself. He's not faking this. Paul moved his... What's gotten into Gurney? He asked himself. He's not faking this. Paul moved his left hand, dropped his bodkin into his palm from its wrist sheath. You see a need for an extra blade, eh? Oh, sorry, he grunted. You see a need for an extra blade, eh? Halleck grunted. Is this betrayal? Paul wondered. Surely not Gurney. Around the room they fought. Thrust and parry, feint and counter-feint. The air within their shields' bubble grew stale from the demands on it that the slow interchange along barrier edges could not replenish. With each new shield contact, the smell of ozone grew stronger. Just a side note, I was thinking now, what is the shield? It works like Oobleck. If you move slowly, you're able to penetrate it, but if you just stab at it, it holds itself. That's nice. It's like ozone, but Oobleck. Ozone grew stronger. Paul continued to back. Now he directed his retreat toward the exercise table. If I can turn him beside the table, I'll show him a trick, Paul thought. One more step, Gurney. Halleck took the step. Paul directed a parry downward, turned, saw Halleck's rapier catch against the table's edge. Paul flung himself aside, thrust high with rapier, and came in across Halleck's neckline with the bodkin. He stopped the blade an inch from the jugular. Is this what you seek? Is this what you seek? Paul whispered. Look down, lad, Gurney panted. Paul obeyed. Saw Halleck's kinjal thrust under the table's edge, the tip almost touching Paul's groin. We'd have joined each other in death, Halleck said, but I'll admit you'd fought some better when you pressed to it. You seem to get the mood. He grinned wolfishly, the ink vine scar rippling along his jaw. The way you came at me. Would you really have drawn my blood? Halleck withdrew the king jaw, straightened. That's my favorite quote from Gurney. See? Look, straightened. If you'd fought one whit beneath your abilities, I'd have scratched you a good one, a scar you'd remember. I'll not have my favorite pupil fall to the first Harkonnen shrimp who happens along. I love that quote. Paul deactivated his shield, leaned on the table to catch his breath. I deserve that, Ernie, but it would have angered my father if you'd hurt me. I'll not have you punished for my failing. As to that, Alex said, it was my failing too, and you needn't worry about the training scars too. You're lucky you have so few. As to your father, the Duke punished me. The Duke would punish me only if I failed to make a first-class fighting man out of you. And I'd have been failing there if I hadn't explained the fallacy in this mood thing you suddenly developed. Paul straightened. He slipped his bodkin back into its wrist sheath. It's not exactly play we do here, Alex said. Paul nodded. He felt a sense of wonder at the uncharacteristic seriousness of in Halleck's manner, the sobering intensity. He looked at the beet-colored ink-vine scar on the man's jaw, remembering the story of how it had been put there by Beast Rabban in a Harkonnen slave pit on Giedi Prime, and Paul felt a sudden shame that he had doubted Halleck even for an instant. It occurred to Paul then that the making of Halleck's scar had been accompanied by pain, a pain as intense, perhaps, as that inflicted by a reverend mother. He thrust his thought aside. It chilled their world. I guess I did hope for some play today, Paul said. Things are so serious around here lately. Halleck, Halleck, Halleck. Halleck turned away to hide his emotions. Something burned in his eyes. There was pain in him, like a blister. All that was left of some loss yesterday that time had pruned of him. How soon this child must assume his manhood, Halleck thought. How soon he must read that form within his mind, that contract of brutal caution, to enter the necessary fact of the necessary line. Please, list your next of kin. Halleck spoke without turning. I sense the play in you, lad, and I'd like nothing better than to join it. But this no longer can be play. Tomorrow we go to Arrakis. Arrakis is real. The Harkonnens are real. Paul touched his forehead with his rapier blade held vertical. Halleck turned, saw the salute, and acknowledged it. With a nod, he gestured to the practice dummy. Now, we'll work on your timing. Let me see you catch that thing sinister. I'll control it from over here where I can have a full view of the action. And I warn you, I will be trying new counters today. There is a warning you'll not get from a real enemy. Paul stretched up his toes to relieve his muscles. He felt solemn with the sudden realization that his life had become filled with swift changes. He crossed to the dummy, slapped the switch on its chest with its rapier tip, and felt the defensive field forcing his blade away. On guard, Halleck called, and the dummy pressed the attack. Paul activated his shield, parried, and countered. Halleck watched as manipulated the controls. His mind seemed to be in two parts, one alert to the needs of the training fight, and the other wandering flybus. I'm the well-trained I'm the well-trained fruit tree, he thought, full of well-trained feelings and abilities, and all of them grafted onto me, all bearing for someone else to pick. For some reason, he recalled his younger sister, her elfin face, so clear in his mind. She was dead now, in a pleasure house for Harkonnen troops. She had loved pansies, or was it daisies? He couldn't remember. It bothered him that he couldn't remember. Paul countered a slow swing of the dummy, brought up his left hand, and entretecer. The clever little devil, Alec thought, intent now on Paul's interweaving hand motions. He's been practicing and studying on his own. That's not Duncan's style, and it's certainly nothing I've taught him. This only added to Halec's sadness. I'm infected by mood, he thought, and he began to wonder about Paul, if the boy ever listened fearfully to his pillow throbbing in the night. If wishes were fishes, we'd all cast nets, he murmured. It was his mother's expression, and he always used it when he felt the blackness of tomorrow on him. Then he thought, what another expression that was to be taken to a planet that had never known Caesar fishes. And that was chapter 4. Paul, Jessica, Reverend, Feed, Baron, Peter, Paul, Jessica, Reverend, Paul, Paul, Howard, and Halleck. Yeah. So that was chapter 4, Waiting Time for the Music. And